So long story short, grew up Muslim. I'm making this video not to diss anyone who is following Islam. It is purely to share my experience of changing faiths, because I want anyone who is from a different faith to realize that, as scary as it is, especially when you're from a Muslim family, it is possible to change and have your own beliefs. You have a right to do that as the free spirit that you are. You get to choose yourself. For me personally, so I grew up Muslim. I did all the things. I used to fast, I used to pray, I used to read the English translation of the Quran because I didn't know how to speak or read Arabic. And I started questioning when I was like 16, 17, because I was like, firstly, I didn't understand why I had to pray in Arabic when I just wanted to talk to God from my heart. I didn't want to just recite the same thing 5 times a day. When I translated what I was actually saying in Arabic every day, I realized I didn't really necessarily resonate with it, because it felt like God was really, it made him out to be like an insecure God that like only needed worship and wasn't seeking relationship and just wanted us to look at him as a master, as opposed to what makes more sense to me now as being like my father, my creator, someone who's inside of me. And that was another part of it. So I always thought to myself, like, if God is everywhere all the time, everywhere you look, every angle, then that means he's got to be inside of me as well, right? It's the only thing that made sense to me logically. So I stopped seeing God as someone that was like separate to me, that I needed to like look out to. And instead I started going within. And the more and more I went within, the closer I felt to him. And the more I went within, it was like I was no longer just praying out to him, but I could actually hear him responding back to me as well. And then a few other things, like I didn't understand why a Muslim man was allowed to marry a non-Muslim woman as long as she was from the Abrahamic books, but a Muslim woman wasn't allowed to marry a non-Muslim man no matter what. It felt a little bit sexist to me. And as I got older, I fell in love with the non-Muslim man, and it was such pure love with like no agenda behind it. So it made me think, like, how can this be wrong? You know what I mean? It was just like, it didn't make sense to me that that was forbidden, whereas like all of my uncles could go off and marry like non-Muslim females and stuff like that. So these are some of my reasons why I changed. I follow Jesus now. I had an encounter with him about 6 months ago. Before that, I was practicing New Age. But I believe that God's spirit was within me even before my encounter. It's just that when I had my encounter, I could like know then that that was him all along. You know, it was like, you're the one that's been walking with me all this time. You're the one that's been with me since I was a kid. Like, it was more of like, I had this recognition, like, oh, it's you. So I believe Jesus is Lord. That's just my personal belief. Now, you don't have to believe the same thing, but I want you to note that, like, if you have your own beliefs, you have every right to follow them. And I don't want to make this like a motivational thing. I know how scary it is. Like, you get scared of being disowned. You worry that, like, you know, what everyone's going to think, and just being ostracized. Like, if you think about it purely biologically, we're wired in such a way where we're always seeking belonging, and being ostracized and like separated from our loved ones is like the biggest, like, our nervous system can't take that. You know what I mean? Like, from thousands of years ago, our ancestors used to be so afraid of becoming separated from their tribe, and so they always wanted to make sure they were doing the right things so that they weren't separated. Back then, if they were separated, they would end up dying because they wouldn't have anyone to look after them and help them find food and shelter. So all of this is ingrained within us, which makes us even more scared to follow our heart. Doesn't mean that it's wrong. And our ancestors back then may have been in danger and unsafe for following their own path, but most of us in nowadays are not. I know there are families out there where they come from really strict Muslim families, and if they start to question, you know, I've heard horrible things happen to people. So I'm not being naive to that. But if you're someone who's in a similar situation to me, where let's say like your family is like not too strict, or like, you know, I don't know, if it's safe for you, I really encourage you to follow your heart. I was in the spiritual closet for a long time, about 10 years, because I was too afraid to speak my truth. And so I would hide. I would like lock the door when I would be meditating, and I would like keep all of my books at my friends' houses, the books that were like obviously showed that I follow a different faith. But now my dad knows, he was with me when I got my first Bible, and I guess things worked out, and it worked out because I surrendered and I finally let go of trying to pretend to like be someone I'm not. And it took a long time, don't get me wrong, like I was scared out of my brains, but I did it in the end, and it was the best thing I ever did. And now I feel like it's given my family a chance to practice unconditional love, and it's allowed us to be real. Even still though, you know, it might not turn out that way for you, and you know, I guess there is the possibility of being disowned. But I guess I just ask you now, like, what's more important, like betraying yourself and abandoning your own heart each day, or just going for what feels true to you, knowing that it's going to bring you closer to God, you know? And I just want to tell you, like, I'm a really anxious person usually. Like, I don't like to just rebel and like go against the grain. Like, I'm a massive people pleaser and I get anxious, and so it wasn't easy. But each time I stood up for what was true to me, I became a little bit more and more comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's a natural part of life. We're going to be in really uncomfortable situations, and each time I learned how to handle it better. So I guess it also helped my nervous system learn how to deal with threatening situations, you know. And as well as that, I guess I just felt closer to myself each time, which helped me to feel closer to God. So I hope this maybe inspires you to start following your heart as well, even though it's scary.